Hi everyone, good afternoon and welcome back. We hope you had a good lunch break. Welcome to the final session of Star Media Group's Work as Health live virtual forum. Thank you for staying with us in the past two sessions on yesterday and also this morning. So as I have mentioned earlier, this afternoon session will touch on one of the most pressing health issues nowadays, which is mental and emotional wellness. And as you're supposed to see on your screen, we have a couple of great work-life wellness gurus who will share with us more on this subject matter. And towards of the end of the session, there will be a panel discussion that will discuss the benefits and limitations of online and offline doctors. So, to learn more about the forum program and profile of our speakers, you may scan the QR code on the top right of your screen, or you can visit at bit.ly/WXH agenda. I repeat, it's bit.ly/WXH agenda. Alright, I think everyone already know about this. A few quick housekeeping matters before we kick off. Well, you know the drill. So please be patient if you experience any minor technical glitch. For WebEx participants, your microphone and video cam are turned off by default. However, you still can chat with the events crew directly if you need any assistance. Or you can email it to us at events@thestar.com.my. If you have any questions for our speakers, please post it in the chat box. Lastly, and more importantly, please remember to engage, learn, and enjoy. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to our next session. I'm going to start with a question. Do you know that aside from negative work environment, harassment, bullying, and burnout too can result in impaired mental health among employees and cause a significant loss in productivity for employers? And to make things worse, creating a healthy workplace remains a big task, particularly in the current climate of COVID-19 pandemic. So today, we have our speaker of this session that has served in the Ministry of Health of Malaysia for 12 years. After the Asian tsunami of 2004, he took up an international assignment with the International Medical Corps. Subsequently, he went on to collaborate with other international development agencies, including World Health Organization, in the establishment of sustainable psychosocial rehab and community mental health services in various parts of Southeast Asia. He actively advocates for the mainstreaming of persons with chronic mental illness through the Malaysian Mental Health Association, of which he is the president. Today, our speaker is dialing in directly 7,200 kilometers away from Kuala Lumpur, which is in Nauru, a tiny island country in Micronesia, northeast of Australia. So without further ado, please welcome Datuk Dr. Andrew Mohanraj.
Thank you to the STAR group for inviting me to participate in this online seminar entitled Work-Life Wellness in the 21st Century. My name is Dr. Andrew Mohanraj. I'm a psychiatrist and president of the Malaysian Mental Health Association, and I shall be presenting on mental and emotional disturbances among working adults. Now, we all, as working adults, spend a significant amount of time in the workplace. And therefore, a negative work environment can lead to psychological problems among employees and a significant loss in productivity for employers. And besides work schedule and workload, harassment and bullying too can result in impaired mental health. Therefore, creating a healthy workplace remains a challenge and in some cases a big task, particularly in the current climate of the COVID-19 pandemic. Therefore, what is workplace mental health and why is it important? Mental health is actually about how we think, feel, and behave. And we know that mental health problems are often a reaction to a difficult life event. For example, we may have had an experience of a recent separation or a break in a relationship, or had somebody close to us maybe had passed away recently. So these are all life events that can actually contribute to decompensation in our mental health. But we must also appreciate the fact that decompensation in our mental health or mental health problems can also be work related. Work, we know, is good. Unfortunately, work can also aggravate pre existing mental health conditions like depression, anxiety, and psychosis. Uh, Work-related stress, however, is very common, and therefore we need to distinguish between stress and mental health problems, because we know that a little stress can actually motivate us to perform better. We all can, I'm sure, will remember in our students' days where, with a little bit of stress, we could do better in school, and we sometimes also could excel in our examinations because of that stress. But when such stress is prolonged or becomes very overwhelming, then it can lead to both physical and psychological damage. And therefore, it is important in the workplace to identify risks for psychological decompensation that are present in the working environment. The implications of workplace mental health problems may not be confined just to the workplace, but can actually have a negative impact on family as well as social interactions. In Malaysia, we do not have enough statistics or data to show how much our loss is as a result, or loss in productivity as a result of mental health issues in the workplace. But we have projected that by year 2030, in Malaysia, we would be losing about 23 billion US dollars annually as a result of mental health problems in the workplace. And therefore, I think it makes a lot of sense for us to invest in mental health in general and in workplace mental health in particular. Now, mental health problems in the workplace may not be that obvious either. The employees may indulge in substance or harmful use of substances or alcohol in the beginning in order to cope with the stress, which can later possibly develop into full-fledged anxiety or depression. Certainly, as managers, we know that we can monitor the performance of the employees, and we can detect if the performance is impaired. But there could also be significant absenteeism leading to loss of productivity. There could also be what is known as presentism, meaning spending a lot of time, long hours in the workplace, but not being productive. What is known as at work, but out of it. So, and this can also result in a great loss of productivity. And this goes undetected because the employees at the office putting in long hours in the workplace, but not being productive. Now, depression in the workplace can also, or is definitely a leading cause of disability worldwide. And in fact, depression is going to overtake cardiovascular disease as the number one cause of disability among working adults worldwide. This disability is actually measured in terms of what is known as disability adjusted life years, which refers to the number of years lost from work as a result of health, of a particular health condition. Then we come on to harassment and bullying at workplace. Now, this has become very prevalent, or rather, a lot of attention is being paid to these issues of harassment and bullying at workplace. And in fact, bullying and psychological harassment are commonly reported as causes of work-related stress by workers. and definitely present as a risk to the mental health of workers. In fact, can have a substantial adverse impact on the mental health of employees as a result of harassment, as a result of being harassed and bullied in the workplace. Consequently, harassment and bullying can have a cost for employers in terms of reduced productivity, again, and due to decreased morale and increased staff turnover. And in fact, the employee could also be deeply traumatized as a result of such harassment. And this harassment may not be so subtle compared to bullying, which is often much more obvious. So it is important for managers and employees also to pay attention to the issues of harassment and bullying in the workplace and ensure that there are enough checks and balances within the organization to have zero tolerance towards harassment and bullying at the workplace. Now, what can organizations do to promote good mental health in workplace? Now, despite the fact that I'd earlier mentioned that there are challenges, particularly in view of this COVID pandemic now and changes in work culture, really creating a healthy workplace is not that complicated. In fact, three main factors need to be taken into consideration by employers and managers. Number one, protecting good mental health by reducing work-related risk factors. And therefore, it's important to identify work-related risks in a particular work environment. And it will be different in different work environments. Number two, a promotion of mental health by developing the positive aspects of work and harnessing the strengths of employees. That's very important to identify and harness the strength of individual employees. And number three, addressing pre-existing mental health issues, because although this is not widely known, or rather potential employees are unlikely to reveal this, the fact remains that many employees with pre-existing mental health issues like depression and anxiety. And they can certainly perform as well as other employees in the particular organization or workplace, but because of a certain stressful situation, may see their pre-existing mental health issues decompensate a bit further, a little bit more. And therefore, it is important for them to get adequate support from the employers and managers. Now, we also know that risks may also be related to job content, such as unsuitable tasks for the person's competencies, or even or particular employee being subjected to unrelenting workload. These are two very commonly identified risks that can affect the mental health in a workplace. The organizations can mitigate this by encouraging staff participations in decision making together with the employers or the managers, and to embrace perhaps flexible working hours and to ensure there is improved communication between management and staff. These are some points some pointers that can actually go a very long way in promoting a mentally healthy workplace. And as I had mentioned earlier, there must be zero tolerance to harassment and bullying, which can also help employees feel safe in the work environment. Now, the next issue that I'd like to discuss here is the issue of burnout. Now, burnout is again another topic that has drawn great attention worldwide, but unfortunately, we don't understand too much of it, and therefore, I'm going to take a little bit extra time here to perhaps elaborate on the issue of burnout a little bit more compared to the other points in my agenda here. Now, what is burnout? Burnout is characterized by emotional exhaustion. cynicism and ineffectiveness in the workplace. Burnout is a response to chronic and stressful workplace conditions. And burnout is more likely when employees expect too much of themselves, feel unappreciated for their work efforts, and have unreasonable demands placed upon them, or are in roles that are not a good job fit. And some employees do not even realize that they are having a burnout or suffering from a burnout. In fact, they might think that they are just struggling to keep up during stressful times. Stress, however, is experienced as feeling anxious or having a sense of urgency to complete a certain task at hand, while burnout, on the other hand, is commonly experienced as hopeless, being apathetic, or at times even displaying sarcasm and negativity. So it's important to distinguish between what is stress, what is commonly known as stress, and what can transform into burnout. So while burnout is not considered a mental illness as such, but it is definitely a major mental health issue, particularly in the workplace. And burnout, as I mentioned earlier, is having a growing impact on workplaces worldwide. And what more during these times of economic downturn? Ironically, during COVID, one would expect less work to be performed. That's a common perception, but it has already been seen in several reports that people are showing or manifesting symptoms of burnout even in this economic downturn when they are working from their homes, because employers or managers seem to think that people who work from homes are not particularly busy, and therefore add on to the workload of employees. And there have been reports coming from various parts of the world that employees working from home are also experiencing burnout. So this is something that employers and managers might need to look into. So, what are some of the signs and symptoms to show us that an employee may be experiencing a burnout? Obviously, there's going to be reduced efficiency and energy. The employee may also report of lowered levels of motivation. Managers and employers may notice increased errors and mistakes in the work of employees. The particular employee may complain of feeling tired and exhausted the whole day, and for no particular reason, and might complain of frequent headaches, and certainly will display some form of irritability in the workplace, for example, and also expressed increased frustration. In the case of burnout, also when an employee has burnout, he or she might display or demonstrate some or express some suspiciousness of colleagues, and usually these are unfounded suspiciousness of colleagues. So these are some of the features of burnout. But in severe cases of burnout, unfortunately, it can actually result in a very debilitating situation, and where people who are suffering from burnout in workplaces might resort to self-medication, like uh, having an unhealthy intake of alcohol or other substances, illicit drugs or tobacco. And this is to help them cope with the burnout, and this can be noticed in the workplace when we notice one of our colleagues who who ordinarily wouldn't smoke too much cigarettes, perhaps would just suddenly increase in the intake of tobacco, or come to work smelling of alcohol, for example. There's also a lot of sarcasm and negativity in the outlook of that particular employee, and there's always this self-doubt in the employee who's suffering from burnout. Okay, if the issue of burnout is left not addressed or left unaddressed in the workplace, there could be several outcomes, and several debilitating outcomes, including developing a full-fledged clinical depression. And needless to say, that the physical health of the employee can also be affected by this. And it has been shown that employees having or suffering from burnout also are prone to or have increased risk of accidents, motor vehicle accidents. And they also would have or display, in most cases, a sort of a communication breakdown, not only between themselves and their colleagues or their management, but also do not communicate, or there's a communication breakdown with their family members and their friends. So there is also a social impact to this. So, how do companies, how does the management and managers and employers prevent or roll out some prevention strategies as far as burnout is concerned? I think it is absolutely important for the management to provide a clear, or to have a clear expectation for all new employees, and as to what their job description is, and what their output should be, each employee in the organization, and to make them understand their contribution to the organization's goal, because every employee, however small the employee may be, can contribute to the overall goals of the organization or the company. And these days, we find many organizations enforcing reasonable working hours, because and the fact that because of COVID as well, people are working from homes. But even otherwise, this philosophy or this culture of resorting to flexible working hours was started several years ago, and it was found to be quite useful. It's also important from the employees. And sometimes organizations should be also a bit flexible and clear to the employees as to which activities require higher standards, and when it is quite all right to lower the bar a little bit and still meet business needs. So when we convey this to the employees, then they would feel more empowered, and identify themselves with the overall goals and expectations. And obviously, it is also good to encourage social support and respect within the organization among different teams. Some companies might have several teams working within the company, and it is good to ensure there's proper and respectful interaction between the teams. All this will go a long way in preventing burnout. And finally, I would like to end by commenting a little bit on the mental health implications as a result of that. Now, we have to be prepared for design changes in the workplace, because it is all geared towards having less physical contact, with the aim to decrease the density at workplace, and working from home may be an option. It is already been established as an option. However, working from home can also take a toll on one's mental health. People continue to worry, despite, whether they're working from home or coming to the workplace, they continue to worry about financial instability, and the potential loss of jobs. They might hold on to a job now, but they don't know for how long they can be retained. And therefore, that is also a worry and can have mental health implications. Now, employee safety at the workplace will also be a consideration. An employee who is working from home might not have this consideration, but for example, if somebody who chooses to come to the workplace might be preoccupied with the thought of contracting the virus at the workplace. So this is also, with so much of uncertainty around this virus and the transmission, and without any clear solution to this pandemic that we can expect in the very near future, this is going to have a psychological decompensation, leading to anxiety and depression in the workplace. And we already have seen some frontline workers displaying symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, medical frontline workers particularly, as a result of experiencing very traumatic events during the COVID. So I think now in this post-COVID adjustments in the workplace, employers need to look to ways and means to support employees beyond the traditional workplace, and obviously this is going to involve a lot of interaction between the employees and managers, and to come into some form of consensus as to what would constitute a support by the employers in this new norm. And lastly, my advice to managers and employees also is that they should not forget to look after their own mental health before they can reach out to or effectively provide support to employees in order to create a mentally healthy workplace. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Andrew, all the way from Nauru, like 7,200 kilometers away from Kuala Lumpur. It shows that Star Media Group will never stop to feed you with knowledge. Even we have distance like 1,000 miles away, we always find a way to connect you guys with the knowledge. Also, with the right e-learning partners we have here, everything is possible. So thank you again, Dr. Andrew, all the way from Nauru. Okay, so
Thank you. The power of technology. Thank you.
okay, we actually have Dr. Andrew now with me. Yeah, again, technology, right? So we can always talk with even thousands of kilometers away. So we have question for you, Doctor, from Dr. Sharifah. So Malaysian Mental Health Association used to conduct face-to-face mental health first aid training for the organization. Given the current pandemic, is there any new approach or training options for this training? So what do you think, Dr. Andrew?
As it is going to be a sort of a physical a way of which we conduct the program. We are not looking at online
Hello,
for now.
hello.
Of course, we will.
Excuse me, Doctor. I'm so sorry. We have a little bit of a glitch. Can you repeat from the beginning?
Okay, so thank you for that question. It's very relevant that we consider alternate methods of providing this training in this current scenario. However, for now, we are still sticking on to our more traditional face-to-face kind of way of conducting this training. But given the fact that we are very much conscious of this COVID pandemic, we are going to take all necessary precautions reducing the transmission of the virus. So unfortunately, sorry, Dr. Sharifa, we are not in a position to offer it in the online manner for now.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Andrew, for the answer just now. So maybe not for now, maybe later in the future, maybe we will have the right mechanism for it.
Yes.
So next question from Tung. Has the Malaysian Mental Health Association produced any guidelines or procedures for organizations to help them build a concrete plan avoiding burnout? So over to you.
Well, we do offer with regards to burnout, and we are very much prepared to guide organizations and companies with regards to this. And we can offer tips, we can even offer the structured program for that. But we have not come out with a sort of a publication or a strict guidelines in this respect, simply because different organizations have different needs. For example, and it is usually more appropriate if we get to know the organization better, have a chat with the managers and employees, and only then we will be able to advise accordingly. So we do not believe in having a one template to fit all organizations. So so that's why it has to be a bit more tailor-made to your particular organization. but we'll be very happy to talk to you with regards to because the issue of burnout is really gaining a lot of attention worldwide. And people, employees who suffer from burnout do not even realize that they're suffering from it. So we hope to engage many organizations, including yours, in this respect.
All right. So yeah, as mentioned, there shouldn't be any like specific or very rigid guidelines for everyone. There always be it should be tailor-made to specific companies. So we have
Absolutely.
more question. Yeah, we have more question from the audience. This next one is from Kasang. So he said he agreed with the point of reducing the work-related risk factors. However, it is very often staff was at great stress and pressure in dealing managing the operational risks and remedy actions. So, what is your opinion and advice on this?
June, I think if
Yeah.
you don't mind, could you just repeat that question? I missed out on some parts
Okay,
of the
sure.
question.
Sure. The question is, uh, it is very often staff was at great stress and pressure in dealing, managing the operational risk and remedy actions. So, what are your opinion on it or advice on this? Yeah.
For the staff, you mean, or for the
Yeah,
management? For the managers, yeah.
for the staff. Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, of course, a little bit of stress, as I mentioned in my presentation just now, is enjoyed that little bit of stress because it made us feel improved our performance and things like that. So that stress is quite common. And that must be accepted in any work environment, particularly in sort of a high profile, high pressured work environment. However, we know that overwhelming stress can lead to conditions, mental health conditions like anxiety and depression, and it can sometimes, at some occasions, even have fatal outcomes for this. So I think generally for a company, for managers, it is important to communicate, have very good communications with the employees, and come up jointly with what are the terms of reference of a particular task at hand, what are the deadlines at hand, um, and work around this and try to offer as much support as possible to employees with regards to this. And as I also mentioned in my presentation just now, that it's not always necessary to expect, what should I say, top class results or outputs from employees on all occasions. There could be certain moments when the guard can be let down a little bit in order to have to outshine others on all occasions. And of course, this is going to be a little bit more difficult at this particular moment of this, where there are a lot of changes. It's the workplace in this moment of COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of staff are now beginning to work from home. Now that poses a lot of challenge for staff as well as for the employers. There's also recently we have had reports where people are saying that managers are giving staff too much of work, um, to staff who are working from home. There's a perception that people who work from home, can do much more work, and things are not, modulated well to ensure that staff are not overwhelmed with work. So that can cause a lot of stress to staff as well. And I think right now a lot of people are also, despite having jobs, are probably concerned that of whether they can hold on to their jobs for a long period of time. That is causing a lot of stress. And although our talk today is very much related to the workplace, and mental health issues concerning workplace, simply because as work in the workplace, we must not forget that there are also other causes of stress in a working adult. and not necessarily has to do with the workplace. So there are other stresses, and particularly in this pandemic situation, where people working from homes could also have stress from the home front. For example, being distracted by their family or children while working from home. So that is going to cause additional stress as well. It's going to also have an impact on how the interpersonal relationship with their family members and their friends and things like that. So it's not an easy thing, but thank you for bringing it up. Ultimately, I believe that very good or transparent communications between management and the staff will solve a lot of problems. And as soon if there is a meeting point where the staff and management understand the philosophy of the organization and the goals of the organization, things can lead to shall I say, a mentally healthy workplace environment.
All right, I think the main key takeaway just now is to always work together between the employers and employees to make this change, to reduce burnout, or even like to eliminate the whole thing. Let's make our working place as a happy place for everyone. All right, we have another question. We have another question from Ravin. So I know someone who was bullied and harassed at work. When he complained, he was then dismissed. So are there any procedure to protect employees facing this issue? So this is a very interesting question. So what do you think, doctor?
Yeah, I think, to be honest now, uh, this issue of bullying and harassment has got a lot of attention all over the world, including Malaysia. Companies must now come up with policies that are, very clear policies that tell employees, tell everyone in the company that they have zero tolerance towards bullying and harassment. Now, as Ravin just now said, quoted an example where someone got dismissed for reporting the matter. Unfortunately, this is the reality of the situation, simply because it is very difficult to prove bullying as opposed to harassment. Now, harassment, I mean, there's a lot of overlap between harassment, sexual harassment, and bullying and things like that. Whereas harassment is usually not related to the workload, bullying is usually related to the workload, and it can be very subtle. Somebody can your manager can bombard you with emails giving you very short deadlines, knowing that you can't cope with it, or not giving you the adequate resources. You might have the skills but not providing you with adequate resources for that. So that is bullying, and it's very difficult for you to prove that you are being bullied in a company, as opposed to harassment, where even one incident of harassment, with sexual harassment or otherwise, even one such incident can lead to severe action against the person who committed the act. But in bullying, it is very difficult to prove that your employer is actually bullying you, or even your colleagues are bullying you. And the only way to bring this issue up to your management and make it clear as to what is expected of you in terms of your output, and to ensure that there is clear transparency between, in communications between the management and yourself. Of course, it makes it all the more difficult if the person who is bullying you is your supervisor or is your line manager, and that becomes a little bit difficult. But in most organizations these days, they have already incorporated a system, a pathway in which an employee can sort of override the supervisor and approach somebody of a higher authority. That should be discussed with the employee, even as a pre-employment procedure, actually, and that's what most companies are doing these days. Um, I can hear you.
Sorry, can you repeat the last part of your answer?
Yeah. Well, what I would suggest is, even as I say, pre-employment procedures, companies, management actually go through this pathway of reporting bullying, with the potential prospective employees, and this pathway must include having for the employees having an ability to report the matter to
Mm,
to someone who is even higher than the employee's line manager, because often the
mm,
bully could be the line manager or the supervisor. This
okay.
has to be enshrined in the company policies, and there are many avenues for that these days.
All right, thank you. That's a very good point there. Actually, maybe some of the corporation they already have their own like guidelines or anything. So if you are experiencing like what Ravin is experiencing, please go transparent to meet your management and tell them the truth. Okay, I think we have another one question from Wong. So, from employers' point of view, how can we handle employees whom are burnt out, loss of confidence, always make mistakes, and can't focus at work, even given the simplest tasks? There is no deadline to get out of their burnout, and things need to move on for the company. Thank you, Dr. Andrew. So, yeah, there's a question from Wong. What do you think, Doctor?
Yeah, yeah, that's very difficult, and the good thing is you have also pointed out rightly that what are the symptoms of burnout here, and in many cases we must understand that burnout is usually seen in people who are overachievers. By definition, people who generally do well are able to cope in an ideal situation that is very appreciative of what they do. As From an employer's perspective, of course, there is a tendency also. As managers, we would like to, think that people who are overachievers are able to outperform others, and therefore we continue to depend on them as a person who can solve problems or who is able to deal with a particular assignment or a task that others might not be able to deal with. And so we forget many times that people have their limits, and it is difficult, and people who are high achievers by nature would probably say yes to everything and say that they can handle a particular situation until one day they break down. And for that to be, to prevent such a thing from happening again, there must be absolute transparency, or respectful communications between the management and the staff, to say what is the output that can be desired at what deadline. If the task is too big, then you break down the task into small mini accomplishments, so to speak, and give deadlines for each of that particular task within a task. And then the employee who is able to achieve those tasks will probably then feel that it is more realistic for him or her to complete the bigger task at hand. And of course, in this particular COVID scenario, again, it's things like this are going to be difficult. How is a manager going to monitor work performance of an employee? It can be difficult, and it can be a challenge. And the employee, on the other hand, also might feel overwhelmed by the tasks given by the employer or the manager, and in order to to please the manager or to ensure that the
Mm,
task is completed at a particular time, might then forego looking after his or her own health, and this can then have a sort of a snowball kind of an effect, where that burnout can lead to full-fledged depression, and of course it's going to affect the productivity of the employee. But often in cases of burnout, as you have rightly pointed out just now, that you're going to see one of the first things that you will see is some sort of impairment, or what some sort of poor indicator of poor performance, you might also find some other kind of features where the employee is trying to cope with the symptoms of burnout by maybe consuming more alcohol or smoking or even doing some kind of illicit drugs, might have difficulty in sleeping, complaining of aches and pains. And in burnout particularly, you will find a kind of cynicism in the employee who is very dismissive of the whole philosophy of the company, and have a very pessimistic outlook in life. These are symptoms of burnout generally, and it can be a big challenge to employers and managers, but uh, it can be done. And if there are any difficulties in this regard, I
Hello? Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Doctor, for the
Great Q&A session just now. I think everyone was very satisfied with your answers. And then we have reached our end of the session. So, Doctor, if you have any a conclusion or any words to the people here.
Mhm. We have just now, we in this question and answer session, we dealt a lot with the difficulties that the managers might have, and also difficulties of employees. Often focus on the mental health of employees. And I think my message here would be also that managers themselves look after their own mental health. Often they don't do that. They try to, solve problems in the workplace without focusing or paying attention to their own mental health. So, all those managers who are listening in today or watching this, I would advise them to be, focus on their own mental health and to be resilient and strong before they reach out to employees. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Andrew, for joining us all the way
Now
from
7,200 kilometers away from Kuala Lumpur. Hope to see you again, and I hope everyone has learned a lot from what have you shared today and from all the Q and A's and the session. Thank you so much, Doctor, and see you again anytime soon. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, um, thank you so much for Dr. Andrew just now for the session. So we're moving on to our next session, which is, do you want to know more about how to achieve happiness through mental and emotional experiences balance? So today we have our speakers with us today, which is the Executive VP of Human Resources for TDCX, which is Mr. Lim Chi Gay. He has more than 20 years of experience in HR, manufacturing, IT, and supply chain. And this varied experience has enabled him to reinvent and transform HR outside in during his career. He has been awarded National HR Leader of the Year in 2018 and HR Professional of the Year in 2019, respectively. Ladies and gentlemen, let's learn to be more happy with Mr. Lim Chi Gay. Please welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank the staff for inviting me to this very close to my heart topic, work-life wellness. So my name again is Chige from TDCX, and our tagline on our employer value proposition is actually be happier. So today I'm going to share with you about how to achieve happiness through mental and emotion experience balance. So the keyword that what I'm going to do is how to, which what you're going to have, the tips that I'm going to give it to you all. Happiness is the word, how to achieve happiness. The other keyword that I'm going to talk about is emotion and mental balance. So let me go to a little bit more about my journey before I go into the topics. If you look at my career, I started my career in Intel, and then I moved to Astro in KL in the T system, a German company, Samsung. Then I moved to AIA, and now I'm in TDCX as a group executive vice president for TDCX. That we have more than 10,000 employees across 10 locations. So you look at all these companies. Actually, my job is the company is a high performing company and is a very high demanding organization. As a HR leader, I just want to share with you my experience on how I cope with the stress and all these company, whether it's an American company, German company, or Korean company, and that require what HR leaders today, that how my roles is supposed to transform the organization. So let me talk to you about TDCX. It's also a very fast-paced and demanding company as we are growing at 80%. Year after year. This year, we are projected to grow even in this COVID-19 at 36%. So it's still a very demanding year for us. So that's pretty much about career. Just to let you know, I'm actually in an environment that's very demanding, high performing, and how I cope with the stress. The other one is I just want to let you know, I celebrated my 50 years and 25 years anniversary. So I'm married to my wife named Jean. I have 2 daughters. They are high performers and smart daughters. I'm proud of them. They will be furthering their studies to UK. One of them is on medicine and the other one on the chemical engineering. So I also want to share with you how I support my family as demanding of the job that run parallel in my whole years of 25 years as a married man. So let me go through what I'm going to cover for today's agenda. I'm sure all of you got challenges, which I'm going to cover that. I'm going to talk a little bit about emotion experience and what are the factors that drive emotion experience, whether it's happiness, whether it's sad, whether it's stress, whether it's relaxed. So I'm going to mention that. Time management, a lot of my staff or my friend asking me, how do I manage my time? So I'm going to talk about my secret in terms of how I manage time and how I prioritize what matters. Stress management is going to be key, especially in today's environment. And how do you manage stress? You can't avoid stress, but you can manage stress. We're going to talk about it. And some of the key takeaway of how to and choose to, the 6 effective habits. And I'm going to recap of the day, okay, or my 30 minutes. So happiness is a consequences of personal effort. And if you look at all these keywords, these are the keywords that align to happiness. Love, the 4 most used word, love. This is very, very important in our life, that you love your job, you love yourself, you love your family. That's key. The other word on the 5-letter words is called pleasing, which is smile. It's free, and how today we smile in our life. And this is one of the secrets I have. And a lot of people ask me, how do I smile every day, even in this stress and demanding work that has been chartered to me? Success is very, very important. That associate to happiness. Success, whether to your life, whether to your work, is going to be matter. And that's what the 7-letter words means. The other words that come to my mind will be the 9 letters, which is a powerful word called knowledge. I always mention that don't chase money, chase knowledge. Reward will come to you, and happiness will come to you. And last, that we cannot forego is the 10 very important and valuable words, which is friendship and relationship. These keywords is actually aligned to happiness. And what are the effort that we focus on all these areas that will give you all happiness? So that's what I'm going to cover later on. I actually got this chart recently. I talk about recession. Can you see? It's very scary. on 2020, the downturn compared to the rest of the downturn. But what I want to share with you, in life, there will be ups and downs. There's going to be downturn in our life. And how foundation help us to handle the downturn. And this is a good example, even the COVID-19. Especially day after day, we hear people who are going to be retrenched and are retrenched, and how they are coping with that. And foundation that they have is going to be very key. And that's why you hear why celebrity commit suicides. It's because we don't know them, what actually in them. The inner is more important than outer. So that's what I'm going to share to you, that it is more about your inner behavior that will build your foundation, and is anything downturn, solo, sad, failure, you can manage it through in this area. And COVID-19 is one of the good examples that is a steep downturn. And how do you manage that? If you ask me, in my life, do I have more success? The answer is yes. I have more success and positive memories. But do I have downturn? Do I have failure? The answer is also yes. Whether it's the work and life, but I manage it. And whether, if you ask me, my health, I'm very, very healthy. My physical health, my physical vitality age is below 30, okay? But one of the things that incident that happened to me in the year 2012 is that I was faced with sleep days. So with a sleep days, doctor have advised me to go for surgery, but I don't. And how do I actually overcome sleep days? And today, doctor advised me not to run marathon. I run marathon yearly after 2 years of slowdown. And that's also one of the reasons why I moved into triathlon. We swim, cycle, and also what we call running. And I overcome even sleep days with my cycling. I can't even cycle 20 kilometers previously. And how I moved from 20 to 40 kilometers and even to 90 kilometers, and I completed half Ironman a year ago. As you know, nowadays we have to slow down because there's no event going on. But just to share with you that each and every one of us do go through downturn, but foundation is going to be very key for us. This is an area that I want to talk about you, that all of us will go through this in one end. And this doesn't align to happiness. Challenges doesn't align to happiness. Being bored without purpose, you don't want to do that. Okay, as I always mention, that don't be good in all these areas. Because when you are good in all these areas, you will have challenges to achieve happiness. And that is the reason why I always tell people not to complain. Because if you keep complaining, you will be good in complaining. So anything, the behavior that you will keep doing, you will be good in. And don't be good in this area. Psychology pain. A lot of people can't get out from a psychology pain and solo. And this is where it's actually not aligned to the happiness. What a lot of the what we call employees, even anyone today do face negativity to themselves, self-esteem. So it's very important that you don't look at everything on yourself that you can't do. Okay, and everything that comes to you is not your problem, it's somebody else. Somebody else issues, that's why you are the consequences of that. Not acknowledging the good and the positive is another one. That everything come to you is always negative. Anything happen to you, incident to you, happen to you is always negative. Even in the workplace, when you got the opportunity of job, and there's a lot of time you say that that's going to be a burden to me, rather than this is called opportunity. So a lot of people don't acknowledge the good work or good effort that the company is doing for them. And the other one is also what happened a lot as a humankind is comparing. And always in the induction, I always share with the new joiners that you will be happy right now because you joined a new company, maybe you got a big jump in your salary. But later, 3 months or 6 months, you will get frustrated or unhappy. Do you know why? Because you compare. You compare that somebody have a higher salary. You compare somebody have a higher benefit. You compare somebody have a dedicated car park. Somebody have a bigger cubicles. You compare your boss bias to others. So all this comparison is not aligned to happiness. Pessimistic is another one. How we look at life, how we look at opportunity, whether it's half full or half empty. So this is going to be very, very important when perception, when the behavior, how we face opportunity, whether this has become a burden to us. Especially when our boss giving you the opportunity, and don't call it as a burden or additional workload, but take it as an opportunity. And I do that a lot. And that's why it allowed me to grow over the years. Worrying about small matters rather than the big, what matters to you. So one of the things that I'm going to share with you is look at the big stone. Don't get worried about small things. Don't get worried that people don't like you, for example, and you keep worrying. All these are not aligned to happiness. And these are all called challenges. The least that you face this, the least that you have all this behavior, the better you will be. I'm sure as a human being, you will face all this. But the key is how do you able not to master in all these areas. Okay, as I always mention, if you are good in complaining, you will be good in complaining. Okay, so let me go through some of my secret. This is pretty much my secret in terms of how I manage emotion experience. And I like formulas. So I want to share with you a few formulas of my life journey. And a lot of time people become unhappy. One is because of love. Relationship, love, play a very important part. That's one. The second part, whether you like it or not, money. Money cannot buy happiness, but money can also make you not happy. Okay, especially in today's environment where you lost your job and you need to support your families. Okay, and the last one, that a lot of also unhappiness is about your health, whether you like it or not. Even in a career, as a HR leaders, we do face a lot of health issue even in the organization, in and out. And be healthy is actually a blessing. And don't take it for granted. But so these are the three areas that I just want to let you know will drive your emotional experience, whether it's happy, whether it's sad, whether it's stressed, whether you relax. Okay, so let me talk about a little bit more detail about on the area of relationship, and this is what I focus. Families. Family is very important. I'm very lucky enough to have very supportive family. Okay, they will support me, and every time when I need them, they will give me encouragement, and that is very, very important. Whether your parents, whether your family. Close friend. It's not about the quantity of your friends, it's about the quality of your friends that will be with you during your downturn, when you need them. And when we want to rejoice with them, these are all very, very important. And your colleague. And one of the quotes that I also mentioned, show me your friends, show me your colleague, I'll show you your future. It's very important. So I'm very lucky to be in a company of the good culture that I'll be surrounded with all the good stuff. And that's what also changed my behavior and how I progress over the years. So the relationship is something that very, very important that impact towards to your emotional experience, that you need to manage it. Okay? Whether you like it or not, money is also a very important element. The financial, your career. And I'm going to show you how I balance that later on. But it's very important that you can't ignore your career and money, because it can become one of the factors that will become a burden to you. I'm just happy enough that I work hard over the years, that I have enough financially strong to support my two daughters' ambition. They are very smart lady, a straight A student over the years. And they further their study now in UK. And you know that it's very expensive. And I'm just glad that I have worked hard over the years that enable them to support them. And that's all, that has become my dream in a day one when I married and when I have my first kids in 1997. And I just want to let you know that this is an area. So career, do focus on it, and don't be lazy, okay? I'm sure that none of you will say that you're lazy, but how do you able to work smart and how do you able to productive? That's the most important thing. Then don't let wellness impact your productivity. And the last one, which is more important, over the last 10 years, I've been an advocate of wellness. And that's why work-life wellness is very close to me. And I'm actually a role model for that. And I always been a role model that I can share with you. What I do today have no different from when I was in 20 years. because I'm has the same energy level as what I used to be. And the whole reason is all go back to the inner behavior and mindset. It's about how you take care of your health, because don't take that for granted. And also sleep well. I'm also guilty for sleeping. I used to sleep 4 hours, but now knowing that sleep is important, I'm trying to sleep more than 5 to 6 hours right now. Of course, I'm trying to achieve 7 hours. But I just want to share with you, these 3 areas is what I always manage to make sure that I am able to have a good memories and happiness more in my whole career, in my whole life, than sadness, than downturn and failure. So that is what you want, okay? But when you have any of these obstacles, how do you manage it? So this is my formula in terms of happiness. The other thing that I also want to share with you is, I mentioned about just now about what matters to you. Put important thing first. So this is a very good illustration about jar of life. Put the big stone into the jar first, which matters to you, and then only put the sands. Don't put the sands in your life first and then only put the big stone, because they have no place for you later on. Because each and every one of you have 24 hours. And that's why one of my messages is 24 by 1. How do you do more in your big stone and in the 24 hours? And that's why my message is also about 24 plus 1. I like formula. So I like to share with you, do more each year, do more each month in your big stone, and do less in your sands. So that is very, very important, because each and every one of us got 24 hours. And how do you manage that? Okay, which lead me to my next slide. It's a very full of pictures, okay? But I have 4 quadrants or pillars that in what I call a big stone in my life. I call it 4 by 1. Let me share the 4 first. Relationship with your family, your close friend is very important. I spend almost 30% of my time. This is about time. 21% on that area. Okay? And I always say relationship and career will give you the most stress in your whole life. The other 2 usually distress for me, which I'm going to come to that. But relationship and career is very, very important, and it go hand to hand. And I always mention that work-life integration is more important, and a lot of people call it work-life balance, but I always mention about work-life integration because it's a mirror for each other. You do well in your life, you will do well in your career. You do well in a career, you will do well in your life. But you need to focus then and don't take that for granted. All this require effort. Effort is a key word. I just want to share with each and every one of you. Don't take anything for granted. Don't take your career for granted. Okay? And also don't take relationship for granted. Invest in that. This is key. And I spent 32 hours, no, 32%, not 32 hours, 32% of my time in average on that. And a lot of also people ask me, will it fluctuate? Yes, it will fluctuate, but then you know how to prioritize. Career is also important, because if you do well in career, you will also achieve happiness. You have one area that you have less burden on, which is financial, when you are old. And you know that today a lot of our what we call employees and also everyone that majority of today have not much, more than 200K in their EPF for their retirement. And this is actually a very sad news. And recently there is a figure came out from the what we call B40, M40, and also T40, T20. T is only 20. Okay, and you can see that B20, B40 and M40 is less than 10,000 as a household income. That is pretty sad, right? So this is where today is covered, and all this will help your productivity. And this is what I always call effort. You need to invest in your effort in these 2 areas and surrounded by good people. So you will know that whether you will be surrounded by good people, the things that you discuss each and every day, are you talking about gossip, or are you really spend time on opportunity? Do you use a positive words, or do you use a negative words? All this will impact your happiness later on. I mentioned to you that wellness is one thing that I do take care, because this is where it will help you to maintain your productivity, your energy level. And this is a secret that I have. A lot of people ask me, how do I have the energy from the morning to at night and able to maintain my energy level? The answer is one area is your wellness, and wellness cover also what you eat. Spend time to eat well. Spend time to what we call exercise. Spend time to sleep. So this area will cover the other 20% of my time. And you know that even in a triathlon, it's a very demanding. So I exercise every day. And this is what I call the independent willingness that I spend. And the reason behind that is because I know that this is one big stone that I need to manage. If I want to do well, if I want to be productive in my relationship, in my career, I need to do well. I need to spend time on my wellness. Okay? And the wellness can also become a distress. So when I exercise, it's actually a distress mechanism for me. Okay? And of course, somebody who like to sleep. Sleep is good, but don't oversleep. So all do this is in the moderating, not do one in the extreme. And the one thing that I also want to share is about consistency. It is not about you exercising for 1 year and then you go back to your previous behavior. It is not consistent. The consistency is what I learned in my journey, and that is what I want to share. The last thing in a job, even my time, I like to impact others' life. That is what, and that's why I'm in a HR. I was IT by background, but I moved to HR because one of my ambition is to impact the life of others. And today, coming out for this session is also an investment for me. And that's under the passion because I like to share my experience. And I do that as part of my 5% of passion. I also teach to the HR managers through MRHRM. I do spend the time, even in this heavy time, in my very demanding job. I do train HR managers. I'm also an advocate of life saving, which today, if you go to pool, that's my job to make sure that all the lifeguards are well trained and able to make the pool safe. And I'm actually a chairman of life saving sports. And I train Malaysia team in the life saving, and I do spend time on that. And I do organize life saving and also life saving sports events for the Malaysia. And I'm part of the think tank for the Malaysia Society. The other thing that I also have opportunity to tell you that one of the skills that you shouldn't be ignoring is called CPR. This is what I call the most important skill that each and every one of you should have. And I'd like to take this opportunity to share with you that I do spend time to conduct CPR training to people who need it. And I encourage you also to acquire this skill, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, because you don't know when you will need it. So I teach that, and I love dancing. I can actually spend more time in the dance floor than any youngsters because I love that. So I just want to let you know, getting and passionate with what you do is very, very important because this can become your distress. And I spend almost 5% of my time on that area, including today, that I come to share my experience to each and every one of you. So I just want to share with you these 4 big stones. The other big stone that I put 4 minus 1 is actually your relationship with your God. Prayer is very important too. When anything becomes impossible, pray. Okay? When you need it, whether you believe or not, it will help you. Okay? Because that's what I've been experiencing. So this is what I always call 4 plus 1, big stone in my life. Once you focus on it, you can have any other sand in your jar. But I just want to share with you how I balance my life. And this is what a lot of people have been asking me, how do I manage my time in that everyone have 24 hours per day? This is it. The next one I also want to share about formula. Stress management. People talk about stress. To me, you can't avoid stress, but you can manage stress. And it's go by two key factors. One is your expectation, your dream, your target, your value, your expectation. The other one is your capacity, your ability, your knowledge, your attitude. Okay, if your capacity is higher than your expectation, you have less stress, that's for sure, and maybe you get bored. Okay, you should increase your expectation. Okay, maybe join company like me, TDCX, where we want a very talented people. That raise your expectation, you should join because you have a higher capacity. Okay, but when you have a low capacity that cannot match with your expectation, that is where the stress will coming in, and that can become positive and negative. You want positive because it's a goal that you want to achieve. You don't want any negative where it impact you or impact your performance, impact your productivity. So that is where you need to be able to improve your capacity. And that's what I always say, like school students, when they go to exam, some of the good students, they will say that they don't have stress because they are well prepared, their capacity is high. So it's going to be sub-sub-soy for them, easy for them, in other words, okay? So what I'm trying to say that is that improve your capacity, and the key word, keep learning. Keep learning, keep changing. That's a key word, especially in COVID-19, disruption, change. Okay? Expectation, improve. You can increase your expectation. One, you increase your capacity. So this is where I just want to share with you that how I manage my stress. Okay? Improve my capacity that I can continue to increase or have a higher goal or higher ambition. But when I have stress, I can lower down the expectation to manage my capacity. But don't make your capacity same size. I'm not talking about your stomach capacity. Of course, it will increase. But I'm talking about capacity of your ability, your knowledge, your attitude, your wisdom. Build them. Spend time on that area through learning. And sometimes it will involve relearning. Stress, have more positive than negative. So this is one area that I want to share with you how I manage stress. Of course, there's a lot of books, but I came up with this formula. Expectation minus capacity equals to stress. Okay? So you can increase your capacity. You were able to increase your expectation. Okay? That will have less stress. Take an analogy like exam. Next one, 6 habits. So I'm going into the last few minutes talking about how to. And this is the habits that I like to share with you, and I'll also encourage you to keep doing. Eat well. Over the years, I do spend last time. I just want one thing that I share in my whole journey. I always drink coffee. I love coffee. I love Starbucks, for example. I have used a lot of sugar, 4 packets of sugar each day. Today, I don't take any sugar. 0 sugar. I know sugar is not good because I want to avoid diabetes. Eat well. Eat routine. Don't overeat. Like our Tun mentioned, this is key. Exercise well. Spend a little bit and consistently is more important. That is very important, and I exercise every day. I spend time to exercise every day in my journey because it's actually a distress element for me. Sleep well, although I'm not doing well in this area. I only sleep like 5 hours per day, sometimes 6, weekend maybe 7, but sleep well because you need a strong body, a healthy body, and a sharp mind in your new day. Okay, pray well. When anything is not possible, pray. Okay, and the other one that is very, very important is connect well. Make friends. Get around that. Learn from people. It's very, very important. And prioritize well, as I mentioned about your big stone. Prioritize well. If you do this well, psychology, physically, mentally, and spiritual, you will be very, very strong. And that is how you manage your emotion experience, that you will have more happiness than sad. You will be more relaxed and enjoying your life than stress. Remember that, enjoying your life. And one keyword that I also want to share with you, enjoy each moment. So it's about mindfulness. Don't worry about future. Yeah, of course you have a long-term goal, but always enjoy the moment. You will enjoy your life. Okay, what the word called YOLO, you only live once. Okay. This is my last slide, one of my last slides, and it talk about how to and choose to. I use the word choose to because it's all go back to you. It's your choice. So that's why I say it's not about how to, it's about choose to. I can share about it today, but are you choose to? You need to choose to be positive. Think everything positive. The more that you be positive, the better you will be. Willingness to change. That's what I call independent willingness. And this is also associated to initiative. So you need to take a step. If you don't exercise, take a small step to exercise. The willingness to change must be there. And that willingness to change cannot be trained. I can't train you on initiative. But just remember my word, it's an effort that you need to do. And that's why I say this is called inner behavior that will be more important than the outer. And have dream and purpose. Because you will go through ups and downs in your life and in your career. I've been through for the last 25 years in my career. 50 years in my life, there will be up and down. But the most important thing, I do have a goal each and every time, whether short term and long term. And the goal is the one that keep me going. And all my goals has nothing is surrounding me. It's surrounding my family, it's surrounding other things, impacting others. It doesn't surround me. And that is very, very important. So I just want to share with you, and the key word there is consistent. Don't be good in 1 year and slack in another year. Consistent is not what you start, it is what you end. Okay? And my last slide, if you cannot remember, I just want to recap again to each and every one of you. And thank you so far for listening to me. And the key takeaway for each and every one of you is relationship plus financial and plus you is your health equal to emotion experience that you will have. Whether it's more happiness, sad, more stressful, or enjoying what you're doing. Stress level is always equivalent to goal and ambition minus capacity. Improve your capacity through learning. Keep learning is what I'm sharing with you all. 6 is better habit. Eat well, exercise well, sleep well, pray well, connect well, and prioritize well in your big stone. Is very, very important. Do that frequently. You will be good in doing so. And the jar of life, the most important thing I mentioned to you that I share with you 4+1. Put important thing first in your life. What matters to you? Okay? Because you will remember all these memories. So with that, I would like to end my sharing, and I thank you very much for staying with me. Thank you very much for listening that. I hope that I give you the insight. I hope that I'm sharing some key takeaway for each and every one of you. Terima kasih. Thank you very much. 谢谢. Done really.
Alright, thank you so much, TK, for the sharing just now. Somehow I feel so motivated to be more happy in my life. So I guess if you feel the same like me, you can always interact with us. Let us know if you feel happier now, or now you know what to do. Because all this time, people will be saying, hey, be happy, but they never actually share on how really to be happy. And we actually received a lot of questions from the audience, and I think everyone is very eager to learn about happiness. So Chige, first question for you is from Wong. If an employee at the managerial level is already burnt out at current workplace, with your experience, do you think it is better for employer to help them to stand up again, or grant the employee's wish to leave so that they could find themselves again at another place. Yeah. So what do you think, Chige, about this?
So I can speak on it because I'm a HR leader. Yeah, burnout do happen in the world, especially in the companies and in my journey, because you have a high demanding, high performing culture, right? And also competition. You will have that. The most important thing is that don't keep quiet. I always encourage employee, don't keep quiet. Raise it out to your managers. And I do face that too. Let me share with you. I do face employee come to me as a HR leaders that they burn out. And as what we can do, sometimes we grant that sabbatical. Sometimes we grant that leave or absence because we know that they are not productive. So we will grant them and we will support them. So that's why my encourage is you are right, that raise out to your employee, raise out to your managers, raise out to HR. They will help you. And they will help you for you to take some time off, for you to regenerate, for you to recharge, and then come back again strong. And again, as I mentioned, in your stress level of burnout, it's all about expectation minus capacity. When you come back, make sure that you have and improve your capacity, or reducing the expectation so that your capacity can match. So this is why I always mention the key word here, have a dialogue. Have dialogue. Don't keep it to yourself. Your burnout will turn into depression. And I'm very sad if anything of this happen to my staff or to any one of you. So I always mention, that's why it's all about dialogue and relationship. That is what my message to this question.
Okay, thank you. So now we have another question from Kyung. Being Asian working adults, most of us are still stuck with our responsibility towards our family expectations, with its traditional mindset which is most probably not that relevant in the current age. For example, starting family at a young age, and etc. So how can we manage these increasingly pressured life expectations better while also trying to survive and thrive in this fast-paced IR 4.0, 5.0, and so on? Yeah, what do you think?
I think that I have a few keywords. The first keywords, don't compare. It's your own pace. Run at your own pace. You will be good in that. Just like how I start triathlon, how I start marathon, how I start my swimming. Start your own pace, because each and every one of us have a capacity that how we manage. Don't compare. But when you build your capacity, you will be good or even better than others that you admire before. So that is the other word of called consistency. So there's two keywords here. Don't compare, consistency. Start small. Start where you can. I know there's a lot of pressure, and I also say age is a number. I encourage youngsters, age is a number. It doesn't mean you cannot be CEO young age. It doesn't mean you cannot be good in a young age. It's a number. Okay? So what I'm trying to say here, and it doesn't say that your friends all doesn't start family early and you are ready. You start family. When you are ready and you find the right people, start family whether you are young or not, because you are ready. Okay? So that's why don't compare. You know your pace, set your pace. Because it is not about how you start. It's about how we end. And that has been my learning over the years, consistency. Because if you are consistency with positive mind, you will keep achieving and they will grow over the years. Trust me in that, and you use that, the pressure will go away, because there will be a pressure in your journey. I don't say I also got a pressure, but you manage it at your own pace and don't compare.
Alright, that's so cool. So we have more questions from the audience. From Mary, the strawberry generation. They are major fighter for work-life balance, which also means most rarely go to the extra mile to get things done or to experience more in this hyper-competitive economy, new crisis environment, etc. So how can we encourage and nurture them to be more productive, not only for the business, but for themselves as well?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So remember I mentioned it's about choice. So now I hear strawberry generation. Okay, I like the word strawberry. But strawberry is delicious, right? and it's red, it's attractive. So there is a lot of meaning to that, even the fruits itself. But what I'm trying to say here is that, yes, I always call work-life integration. And some people will choose to be more focused on life than career. Yeah, that's a choice. That is a conscious choice. But what more important is that you are productive. You are productive in these two areas. It is more important, and I always mention about 24 plus 1. Is do more in that area than anything else. If you do more in these two areas, as I mentioned about relationship and career, that is your key. That is your big stone. Spend less time in gossiping, for example. Spend less time in comparing. Spend less time in things that are not productive. So that is, if you do that, you already one step ahead. Even today, you might experience that you are not balanced, but then you do one step more. If today you want to spend more time to experience, or even to go travel, for example, to experience, and to be happier, and you think that you're happier, do more in that area, but don't let go the others, because others is also important. So I always feel that I don't believe that you can let go your career and you just want to just experience the world. Later on, you will find that it's very difficult to start in your career, and that is something that I always call the word consistent. So I encourage you, yes, you have the dream, you have a goal, go for that. The only thing I mentioned, this is good, don't let go that. The environment that you face is only a challenges. What more important is that you spend time on this area more and more, and I call the word called 24 by 1. The reason is because 24 hours plus 1 hour, 1 extra minute is also counted. Do one thing more in the area that you like to do, which matters to you.
All right, thank you for the answer just now. And I learned a new phrase today, strawberry generation. So we have another question from Joey. Does being happy means achieving everything, all this at its best, in relationship, financial, and health? Can the lower income with lower intellect people be happy too? Personally, yes. So, but what do you think about this?
Yes, as I always mention, it's all about expectation. It's all about commitment, and it's all about dream at the end of the day. Remember, I mentioned that happiness is relative. Okay, you can achieve happiness. The rest of the factor is actually relative. So what I'm trying to say here is that if you have a lower income, so I always say it's not about how much you earn, it's about how much you save. That's more important. It's about how much. It's about more about how you make your money works. It's not about how much you earn, because you spend more. It's also no point. Okay, that's one. So lower income with a lower intellectual can be happy, because it's all go back to a simple life. This is expectation. You can also achieve happiness. Okay, and one of the things that I know, that whether a high income or lower income, that we cannot forego is health. Whether lower income and high income, health doesn't care. Health doesn't say that you are richer, you will be healthier. Health also doesn't say that you are poorer, you will be prevented from that. So, and I feel health is important in your happiness, because if you are not healthy, you will feel depressed too. Okay, and this is one of the key. The rest money is to me relative. You are right, because it goes by expectation. The other one is relationship, and a lot of people also have a different expectation. So that's why I always go back to all this is relative. What is your relative and the equation? That's why I use the word equation. Okay, and each and every one of us have a different equation. Some of you got 100, some of you only got 10, some of you got 1,000, but they are all the same in the end, because it's all equal out. So that is my answer, that yeah, you can achieve it. But one thing, don't forego health, because it doesn't care whether you are richer or you are poorer. Okay.
All right, everyone deserves to be happy. So next question is from Game. Tige, how would you guide a pessimistic and highly negative person who likes to challenge authority and playing the devil's advocate in every situation? Thanks and regards.
Okay. So this is an area that I mentioned, that if you keep doing certain habits, you'll be good in doing that. And I always mention one thing, don't good in complaining, because you don't really keep complaining, you will be good in complaining because they're habit. So these people that is pessimistic and highly negative, they're already good in that. Okay, so they might be surrounding with negative people. But if you think that you are able to impact the life of others, which I do, spend the time. Spend the time. There will be a time they will listen to you. Go to what matters to them. What matters to them, they will change. So what is more important is that knowing them and what matters to them, they will change. Because I believe everyone wake up in the morning want to do a good job. Nobody wake up in the morning and say that I want to do a bad job. Nobody. Everyone, yes. So the only question is that how do we help them? And what matters to them? Focus on that. They will change one day. It will take time, but if you never give up and you believe, you will change. And I've seen that in many, many cases as a HR leader and as a friend to others.
Okay, we have come to the last question for Chige. From employer's perspective, how can we create a happy culture from a current culture that is not so positive? And how do we encourage or empower employees to be more open to this change despite many engagement activities? By Dennis.
Okay, how do we create a happy culture? If you are in HR, you have what I call internal healer influence, just like me. Okay, so I play a very important part to make sure that a happy culture in the organization. So you are in HR, you are the influencer. If you are the leaders, you are also the influencer. But if you are an employee, you can become a change agent. And that is what it starts. A multiplier of one will make the change. So what I'm trying to say here is that if you are already in a culture that is not a happy culture, you can make that. And of course, it's not easy. And I always tell people, if you have tried and you are not succeed, move up. You can't do it because it's out of your healer influence. Don't get sad and unhappy over things that you cannot control. You have a choice, as I mentioned. There are many, many organizations that will welcome you. Join them. Same goes to friends. That's one. And the other one is that how do we encourage, empower employees to be more open? Yes, if you believe in that, be a change agent. I always mention, be a change agent. Okay? And engagement is a booster only. If you know about HR, I always say you have a lot of engagement activities like outing, and so these are all booster. A short-term, what I call a short-term booster to make people happy, but it cannot last. So that is the reason why in a culture organization we need to empower, and to get empowerment is important because when you empower, it comes with engagement. And empower is also equal to a formula that I have. You will never able to empower your staff if they don't have capacity or capability again. So always build their capacity, always train them, always develop them, that they can be empowered by themselves. And when they are empowered, they will be engaged. Okay? That is the key for an organization to have an engaged staff. And which is true. The word empowerment is something that we want every one of us to be able to empower, do the right thing in the right way. If every staff can do that, the organization is proud to have you because this is what will make a change to the organization. So be a change agent. If you think that there's a work that needs to be done, not only HR, you can make it. And that will make a lot of difference. A step by step, a small step will change. I have seen that many, many times. And that's why we love to have engagement champion, because they can influence the others. And the more they influence, the others will influence others. And we have what we call a positive culture in the company, and it all make up of people. Okay, so that is my answer to this question.
Okay, thank you so much, Sige, for the Q&A session as well as sharing session just now. So point is, be the change maker and be happy. If you're happy, everyone will be happy too. So, Sige, one last sentence from you to everyone out there.
My last keyword, I have a few keywords. I always call consistency is one. Consistency behavior is what we need to do one step at a time. And don't compare. You will be happier.
All right, that's it from Chige. Be consistent, be the change maker, and be happy. Thank you so much, Chige, and hope to see you again in the future. And for you guys out there, stay tuned. We have one more agenda after this, and see you. Thank you so much, Shige. I feel a little bit happier today, and we are actually reaching to another our final session for today, which is the second panel discussion. All right. So the panel discussion will discuss the benefits and limitations of both online and offline doctors, and how to keep pace with the rise of telemedicine, and how working adults can adapt to both in a way that complements their busy schedules. You will recognize our first guest panelist from his regular column in The Star, which is putting Dr. G on the spot. Dr. George Lee is currently a clinical associate professor of surgery at Monash University and consultant urological surgeon from Gleneagles, Kuala Lumpur. Dr. George Lee was also a consultant urologist in the United Kingdom. Our second guest panelist is the CEO and co-founder of Walnut Wellness. Influenced by her time working as a pharmacist, Shin Yun realized the urgent need to better preventive care. Walnut Wellness aims to bridge the gap and ensure user-centered, outcome-oriented, data-driven preventive care could be accessible and affordable to the people. Our third guest panelist has over 30 years of experience in healthcare. Dr. Raini Azmi Ali is currently the Chief Executive Officer of KMI Healthcare. Dr. Raini has a well-decorated background as a healthcare professional. Started his career at Prince Henry's Hospital in Melbourne, all the way to being the Regional Medical Coordinator of Columbia Asia Group Hospitals for 6 years prior to joining KMI Healthcare. Last but not least, our panel moderator. He has over 15 years of academic and research experience in Germany, Europe, and Malaysia. Dr. Lau Sian Lun is currently an associate professor and holds the responsibility as the head of department as well as the associate dean for the School of Science and Technology. Are you guys super excited with this panel lineup as I am? If you do, please let us know at the chat box. Before I hand over to Dr. Lau, just a gentle reminder, if you have any question for our panel, please feel free to type in the chat box. Alright, the panel, I think, is getting ready. We'll be right back, so please stay tuned.
Right, well, good afternoon, and I'm very glad that we have this opportunity to come here and to share what we think about online and offline doctors. It's a bit strange to think about online, offline, because it looks like it's real or fake doctors, that kind of feeling. And without me trying to define it, I would like to ask the three panelists, and what do you imagine as the ultimate online doctor, something like a superhero, right? So what's your view about ultimate online medical healthcare doctor that we can imagine either in near future or future? Maybe we start with Xin Yu.
Yeah, sure. I think I will share from a different perspective, because a lot of us, when we talk about online doctor, we only talk about the treatment side of things, but I would like to look at it from even from the wellness side of things. You know, instead of the sick care, we can even talk about the well care. So we should even take care of people when they have yet to fall sick, you know, even when they are well. So people at the community level, they should be able to get access to health coaches, you know, even their community health providers, for example, their pharmacies or even their gym trainer, their dietitians, and they get hold of them just by a click with their mobile phone. So that is what I imagine for the future of healthcare. And when they are sick, then again with a button, with a click in their mobile phone, they'll be able again to get access to a doctor at the primary care. And if it is serious, then they get better referral to the secondary and even the tertiary care as well.
That's good. So we try not to limit doctors as in just medical doctor, but the whole healthcare kind of ecosystem.
Yep, that's right.
All right. How about
I
Dr. George?
agree. I mean, the whole healthcare ecosystem should involve all the healthcare practitioners. Coming back to answering your questions about what constitute a good online healthcare doctor, so what do I imagine in 20 years from today, what would I see? I would imagine there are three segments of what doctors, as myself, as a actively practicing doctor, there are three segments that will be important. One segment is a consultation stage. In that consultation stage, it's about making the right diagnosis and yet having that trust and rapport. And then the second part is the investigation stage. I mean, in that basis, all the investigation has to be as accurate as possible and as minimally invasive as possible. And the third phase of that actually is the intervention part. So whatever doctors do to you, and I think we see a lot of progression over the last decade or so in both in all three segments. So as far as doctors face to face, it like you know, we're all virtual today. Everybody, even though we're talking about real doctors, fake doctors, right? Okay, we're virtual today. And then in many ways, we're heading to that direction anyway. However, what we probably would need to discuss later on is how much of that is about, how much of seeing a doctor it's about getting the accurate diagnosis. I think the accurate diagnosis itself is not difficult because any form of repetitive recognition of a symptoms or looking at any sign will be able to address that issues. And then the part where the doctor added to it, which hopefully in the future will be important, will be that compassion, the trust, and then that is a human side of things. Hopefully it will evolve as well.
So I think before I pass the time to Dr. Rini, at least we don't distinguish online, offline doctors as a real or fake doctor, like me, fake doctor. But a real doctor that no matter you see him face to face or her face to face or not, you are really dealing with a human that has more than just a repetitive action, but you can feel it's really someone, no matter online or offline. Dr. Rini, what do you think?
Right, okay. Actually, yes, our topic is online, offline doctors. But my concept of what is in the future for online doctors is actually wider than that. Yeah? Adding to what both our panelists have said, an online doctor would be a component of what is coming up in what I would term as smart healthcare. You know, everyone is going online, and we cannot run from the fact that technology is coming up, is building up, and healthcare has to keep up with that. So it goes beyond. I think Ms. Kaur did say about pharmacy and medication, another component. So the doctor's consultation, another component. KMI Healthcare, we run 4 hospitals, Lana Jaya, Taman Desa, Kuantan, Kuala Lumpur. So we are trying to get a whole system which includes all this. People are talking about apps, you know, online consultation, ordering medication. So all that will be part of this component, and online doctors will play a very important role in what I would term as smart healthcare.
Yeah, I think smart healthcare is the big word that people are talking about, how you combine something that is currently quite high-tech. Actually, medicine is something still high-tech to give people the care they need, but now enhanced with the latest development. That's where we move towards smart healthcare. I think that part, there's no contradiction. That's a good thing, right? I would like to ask the panelists, why do we need online doctors? In your opinion, what's the need? What's the reason behind the need of online doctors? Maybe we start with Dr. George.
Yeah, I think there are 2 areas to that. One part is that when we're all evolving digitally, there are many people, for whatever reasons, don't want to see doctors, either out of embarrassment and then out of cost and various reasons, and then all the convenience of their own home. This is an inevitable paradigm shift towards the online contact with a healthcare provider. And I think that side of things, people can eventually either accept that change or not accepted change and then go for traditional way. And I think whether we need it or not, technology has provided us that option, whether you will take it up or not. And in my opinion, I think more and more people will take up the options when they feel more and more comfortable with that. The other part of online, which I mentioned about accuracy, is that sometimes we can assume that the machines can do better works than doctors. Right? For example, there are a lot of pattern recognitions of cancer cells, for example. When you use machines to repeatedly recognize certain things, it will probably recognize better than a human. So that is happening, let's say, for example, X-rays. You know, when the machines recognize X-rays so many times that certain tests, the accuracy is probably better to replace a human. So in that sense, the online doctor will create that accuracy that is crucial for future intervention.
This is interesting. While you talk so much about replacing human, I think what you want to say is not just purely replacing the medical healthcare practitioner, but when it comes to online, that replace can compensate certain things that online doctors can't do. So it's not fully replacing, but the part that online can't deliver can actually have some assistance or complement from technology.
A lot of people like to think that it's synchronized symbiosis. However, we all have this fear. We all have watched Terminator 2 before. We know that at one stage, the machine will probably do a better job than us. And there's always that fear, no matter what job you're in. It's either a factory person or anybody. We really have to contemplate that potential replacement. So a lot of my colleagues obviously say the right things, like you said, we are not replacing. But at the end of the day, if the machine is doing better job than human, there is that chance of your role might be replaced.
I think I'd rather say it's replacing certain tasks that human rather now spend time on other things that are more important.
Yeah. So on that basis, a lot of doctors in any professions, we need to evolve to synchronize with the technology rather than resist it or fearing the replacement.
Yeah. Dr. Rino, what do you think about the need or even...
I definitely agree with Dr. George. Again, my view would be, when we say online doctor, it's not confining ourselves just to be connected online, through the internet or through an app. But an online doctor, like you and me, we have to keep up with the technology. So exactly as Dr. George said, from X-ray we have moved to CT scans, we have moved to MRI.
Yeah.
Being an online doctor, you have to keep up with that. So in a hospital setting, for example, having a hospital information system. Yeah. Again, a lot of hospitals have moved towards that direction, but there are a lot of hospitals which are trying to move. There are doctors who are still resistant to keying in medical notes into computers. To me, that's also being part of an online doctor, rather than still sticking to pen and paper. So that is again part of the whole smart healthcare thing. And even from the old days where we had to listen to lung sounds with our ears, it evolved to a stethoscope, right? And now from a stethoscope, now we are looking at things like handheld ultrasounds. So as doctors, we had to listen and try to interpret sounds, whether this is a murmur, a funny sound in the heart, and whether this is a systolic murmur, a diastolic murmur, according to the cycle of the heart. But now with the handheld ultrasound, you can actually see what's happening rather than just based on sounds. That is also part of being an online doctor. And I think, as I said, all that will encompass of doctors evolving from offline to online.
Yeah. So I think to just wrap up this part, is more like online doctors are smart doctors that will use technology to carry out smart healthcare. I think that's a rather good perspective, because it's online, offline tend to give people the feeling, am I connected to the internet? It's a bit too restrictive. But I just suddenly thought of this example is like when I can walk all the time, but if there's a car, I'd rather use the car to get to the destination faster. That hopefully is an analogy why technology is necessary to help us. Will this make offline doctors obsolete? That's something I'm very curious about. Dr. Rainey, can you touch on that?
Okay, to me definitely no, because medicine actually is a combination of science and art. The science part, technology and computers and all this can take over that part. But the art part is where the person comes in. You can look at the whole line of symptoms and teach the computer to interpret the symptoms, but having the human touch will make a lot of difference to decide what diagnosis is it. I can give you an example. Gallstones is very common in women, it's very common in obese people, and the symptoms are very typical of pain on the right side. From personal experience, I had a lot of pain in the abdomen. I thought, it's not gallstones. I'm a male, I'm not fat, I'm not at that right age. But when I went to see my surgeon, he said, you've got gallstones. And he was right. So that's where the art comes in, that's where the human touch comes in. And so offline doctors are definitely still there.
How about doctors who resist the technology that can help them to be better or smarter in that sense? That is the coming back to what we've just said earlier.
View on that, So obviously, as a doctor, I will give you my view about being a dinosaur, who's over 50s and then can't really accept that. What's your view about that? Yeah.
I think coming from a perspective, because we founded a digital health company and we deal with some of the healthcare professionals as well.
It's not easy.
It is not easy, definitely, because I think one thing, the mindset is one thing. They have been used to their way of practices for like ages, in decades, and so in order for them to adapt to a new system, a new processes where they need to get used to all these machines and all that is definitely not easy. And I think because I heard also from other doctors community as well, I think their concern is also from the regulation perspectives, whether or not they are well protected in that sense if they actually provide their services via online platforms and whatnot. I think that is also one of their main concerns.
Yeah. Well, I beg to differ with what you said. I mean, you said, okay, you've got this pain, and then eventually the doctors make a better judgment. But with technology getting better, one day that symptoms potentially can actually make a human better. And coming back to your comment about doctors resisting, I can tell you, I'm one of those doctors. You want to go paperless? It's like, I don't even know how to switch on a computer. It's like, it's completely difficult for me to accept what it is. But I'm also a professor in Monash University, where I train a vast majority of my students who are brought up in digital era. So with vast majority of these people are in the acceptance phase from the day they're born, right, with the iPad in their hands and when they are still holding the milk bottles, right, okay, and then it is something that is almost a second nature. So the new groups of doctors will inevitably find this is just a way of life. So in a way, answering your questions is that the old doctors may resist the changes or find it difficult to accept the changes. Obviously, COVID-19 changed a lot of things, right? It changed a lot of ways. Many of us never even heard of Zoom before, and suddenly, like, you know, a 75-year-old physicians will tell you about how he Zoom with their kids, right? Okay, and then so I think in a way, accepting new technology is inevitable. And then how fast that happens, it sadly took COVID to kind of like facilitate this. But in a way, it is not going to make doctors obsolete, but it's going to change the landscape of the whole thing within a decade.
Can I just add, resistance to change is human. That's why part of putting in innovation and new things is always change management, you know, which is not our topic today. But to summarize what will happen to these doctors, I would like to quote what I learned from my former CEO. What he said was that you will find the well-learned person well-equipped to face a world which no longer exists. And that's why we have to move.
Well, in a way, it's not just that person either decide to survive or not. The market will decide to help them to survive, because the days I was brought up, I have to go to the the shop lot doctors as a GP, and the shop lot doctors can't survive because to continue to function 24 hours a day, to have their files handwritten, stored in the shop lot, and then have their X-ray machine upstairs, they don't exist anymore. It's because the technology, the market actually will make them obsolete in many ways. So we're evolving naturally or unnaturally anyway. So I think in a way, nature will take its course. It's a natural part of the evolution.
I think as long as we also have offline patients, they may still want offline doctors. That's one perspective we have to actually balance. Not all wants that high-tech kind of environment to get their treatment. Some still prefer to hold the doctor's hands when the SOP and COVID is over. It's that human touch that we can't run away, right? So, but I come from technology background that I will also agree you just have to embrace technology one day. And the hope is, of course, the young people are really more receptive or natural about it. And that is how things will just happen, naturally. I want to bring this to the next part, since Dr. Josh, you mentioned about AI, machines being better. I know since last year there are this kind of technology. If you look at online, they talk about deepfake, that you can even put someone's face, talk to you, there's someone else, you just use AI to change his face. Will one day be actors, getting AI and pretend to be you giving consultation? What do you think about that?
Well, okay. Don't need actors, right? You can just get
true.
animation, right? Yeah, you can actually do that. I suspect one day the whole image is a perceptions of how you feel comfortable. So one day, if you just log on 10 years from today, if you want to talk to a woman about issues, then you click on the want a woman doctor. If you want with different accent, Asian accent, you just put on different accent. It's whatever you feel comfortable that make you feel at ease. I think eventually it will be like that. So is that AI? In a way, it's not. It's about perception. But the AI part is how the patterns are being recognized. Let's say, for example, Google has invested so much money in the fight for cancer. If you just control the pattern of, if you just observe the pattern of cellular changes, right? Okay, and then actually intervene ahead of that cellular change. And then that is a concept that we didn't even contemplate before, because previously we were just blocking the cell progression. But now we are anticipating what is that cell progression 10 days from today and actually block it ahead of the time. And that is looking at the pattern recognition. That's AI. And then also a lot of radiologists perhaps are concerned that because in many ways that their job is pattern recognition, just looking at pattern after pattern of images. And one day, the technology will recognize that pattern a lot better than human. So in a way, those AIs are the things that will make accuracy, intervention that is so good, and then even pattern recognitions that eventually will create interventions such as the cancer control. And I think obviously that is the bigger picture of what we're talking about, the online medical technology in the future. But the medical provision, as far as consultation, test, and intervention is concerned, 10 years from today, if we do this, 10 years from today, it will be beyond recognition.
I think as we are speaking, technology is also evolving now. But what I foresee maybe in the next decade, AI might not completely replace doctor, but I think AI would make doctors better doctors.
Yes.
So because when you talk about doctors or even other allied healthcare professionals, we have a lot of tasks in hand when it comes to providing care to the patients, coming from a perspective of history taking or even providing diagnoses and then to come up with the better treatment plan. And AI is good at certain skills. I
agree with that. Therefore, as a doctor myself, the way I look at it is that rather than fearing AI, if it makes me a better doctor, that I will have a better accurate diagnosis,
that's right,
better precise intervention, then I need to know what is available. I need to keep myself updated, and I also need to focus on my strength. Because like you mentioned, the doctor's strength is that human touch.
That's right.
So when all that data is in front of me, I can deliver more precise medicine to patients, then I need to focus on my human touch in order to make it better for the patient.
Yeah, I think the strength of AI is more towards their logical thinking and the analytic skills, where they are able to, the robots are able to recognize known patterns, old patterns, but humans, we can then assess if there's a new thing coming out. If there's a new data or new sets of data, new issues coming out, then humans have to take place. And I just want to echo what Dr. Reynolds and Dr. George has mentioned. AI doesn't have the social skills that we have. And I think a big part of patient care is definitely in maybe motivating them, and when picking up all these emotional things where robots cannot pick up.
The art
or
of
even,
medicine.
Exactly. Or even to respond emotionally appropriate to the patient, to even motivate them to take up the treatment or whatnot. I think this is the part where AI cannot replace human doctors and even other professionals. Yeah.
So I definitely agree with what they have said, but AI can never replace that human touch. That's one thing. The second thing is you still need a human doctor to teach the AI what to do. So we're still there.
But the challenge is once you taught the system and the system can do it well, you do not need the other doctors to do it anymore.
Yeah, so that we can have doctors to do doctors' job,
I
human
believe so.
job.
Don't get me wrong. I do hope that it's not even a symbiosis, we're complementing. I was thinking a picture of Batman and Robin, the doctors are fighting crime or the diseases, but you have this AI keep helping you to be more efficient.
So the question, who's Batman and who's Robin?
Doctors are definitely the heroes, and you have the sidekick, right?
That's right, yeah.
Assisting, which is equally important.
That's
and it's
right.
not just AI, there are other people in the whole ecosystem making sure we give the best quality of healthcare to people who needs them, right? So I think let's move on before we fight more. No, but if we roughly agree on the AI, I think let's talk about things that you anticipate based on the definition of online doctors that will be a challenge maybe in the next 5-10 years, that it will stop it from becoming reality in nearest future. Anything you would like to share?
I mean, earlier on, we touched on issues of legality and confidentiality. I think it's just a matter of different jurisdictions agreed on what is legal and what's not. I think 2-3 things that I worry about. Of course, one day I probably have to accept my patient wanting to have a WhatsApp consultations, FaceTime consultation with me. For example, I have many patients from Indonesia who can't come over because of border closure. And then when I talk on the phone, they said, "Doc, do you mind just do a FaceTime?" That is an online consultation. I have several concerns. Number one is that whatever communications I have with that patient, in a way, confidentiality, right? Okay, how safe is the line? And then also how much of that is potentially can be leaked, and then because it's very sensitive information about cancer care, sexual health, anything that it's supposed to be guaranteed that confidentiality. And also, how safe is that data if it's recorded? How will it be used outside? For that autonomy of that person. How much of that am I protected of me giving a consultation across border? Right? Okay, and I falling under their jurisdiction, my jurisdiction, and how much of that is protected by my medical protection indemnity? And then all these are question marks that I can't answer, because I did it out of good gesture. However, if that goodwill actually land me in hot water, so be it, because I felt that I did it with good intent. However, I think it's a matter of time that the indemnity, the insurance, the healthcare providers, the regulatory bodies have to come up and say how much of that they will protect the patients and how much of that will protect the doctors. And of course, on your side, you'll work hard to make sure that the patient confidentiality and the safety of that line is ensured. Because initially when Zoom came on, right, everyone was complaining that it's all open access to people discussing private matters, but eventually that clamped down. So there will be a lot of fine-tuning, but those are my concerns about legality and indemnity.
I think a lot of times regulation will follow suit what the market has progressed. So it may take some time for regulations
or follow a lawsuit. Right? It may take a lawsuit to determine the law, right?
I think if you observe since probably 2000, when internet and technology became mainstream, I'll put it that way, law is constantly chasing after it. I think it's the nature of how technology really changed that fast that I'm not thinking they purposely delayed. It's just that there are so many new things we have to reconsider. I think even business models must adapt very quickly, integrating, complementing all factors, right? I think from your point of view, what do you think about this question, challenges that you foresee?
Well, if you're talking about the next 5 to 10 years, my take on this is the biggest challenge will still be change management. Even like we are trying to move from on-site servers to cloud servers. There's a lot of questions, there's a lot of resistance of people trying to accept. Is this safe? Is my data safe? And from the traditional people, there's still a lot of resistance. I want the server on-site. I have the data there. I have full control. So even in that aspect, going from a on-site server to cloud-based, there's a lot of resistance there. And I think that will be the biggest challenge in the next at least 5 years, managing that change for people to move to the Internet of Things, to move to online doctors and all that. Then the second part would be the technology itself. We have looked at a few systems and all that, and there's always something that still can be improved.
Okay.
Yes. So that technology has to keep up as well within the next 5 to 10 years.
I'm going to ask you a question. Let's say we're in the healthcare side. We're cutting that line. You're on the other side. What challenges or barriers do you think you may potentially face as a consumer, as a healthcare user, if you were to have a online consultation and online intervention with your clinicians?
I would say I can't represent the general public because I had my kind of a short time with a telemedicine project that we advocate how technology does close the gap. But I would agree the part about the trust. I think the perception of how safe it is more important than, in actual fact, is it really safe? Because I dislike saying that COVID did push this trust closer to how it can be, because we have to trust all this online platform. And it's the same thing with AI. It's not just doctors may find it difficult to trust AI models. Even patients may be skeptical because it's no longer the doctor that you trust that made a decision, I have a cancer. That kind of transition will take time to it's not just awareness, it's about partly legal framework and partly the reliability of the technology. And I still think it comes back to the healthcare professionals to really advocate it when we also manage to convince you how well it works.
Do you think overall people feel comfortable? Kind of like if you feel like you want to discuss your, like you said, preventive medicine. If one day I wake up and said, As a 50-year-old man, I want to know what sort of things I need to do to keep myself healthy. And then I looked online and looked at Mayo's Clinic and decided that I'm going to log on to talk to Dr. XYZ in Mayo's Clinic and talk about it. Do you think people are comfortable to do that so that they can have that choice of going for the best person or whoever they wish online? Do you think people feel comfortable with that?
Now I become panelist, right? I can speak as a consumer. I don't know, but for me, I agree with Dr. Renee. Doctors are people that I start to build that relationship and trust. So if a doctor moves, I will follow. I think that's my generation. But something we all agree, the new generation may treat doctors just like, how they switch from brand A to brand B, many other factors that may come. But I feel when it comes to my well-being and my life, someone that I can trust, that I grow up together, may not change so fast. I do not know. So
maybe, sorry.
So I would say yes, they would accept it, because even now they have started moving in that direction. Yeah, for example, we talk about Dr. Google. They consult Dr. Google and make their own judgments and have their own treatment plan. But being a doctor, even though now I'm holding the position as CEO, I still get friends and relatives sending me WhatsApp, just telling me about their symptoms and asking for an opinion. To me, that's also part of being online. So people are already moving towards that. They're using the tool, but they still seek the doctors that they trust.
But they ask you because they trust you, right?
Yes,
that's my
right,
point.
yes.
I wouldn't ask any random doctor, no matter what
right.
qualification, because I need to know the doctor first.
That's right.
And another part is I will want to know who he is attached to. That hospital, like that entity, also give me trust. So there's a lot of trust when I go to a doctor, and I think even second opinion is going to another trusted party. I think healthcare will continue that way, right? What do you think?
I think potentially that can be digitized as well, because I think from the patient perspective, a lot of times when we will ask someone, who's the best gynae in town, right? Who's the best peds in town? We'll get a referral from someone else. So if, let's say, that can also be digitized, we can have like an open review from the patients of that doctor in that whole, list of doctors, like what Dr. Joshua mentioned. Then I can go online, and if I have that sort of problems, and this is the list of doctors with all the reviews and the ratings there, perhaps
I dare not even look at my own review, because I was told by patients that, your review is not bad. I was like, review? I didn't even realize that. I know now I'm like restaurant. I have read a rating, right? Okay, it is. You're absolutely right. It's word of mouth, and then also these rating that generates your trustworthiness. However, we must admit sometimes these sort of decisions are emotional, right? Okay, because we all have our relatives who ask neighbors about who is the best person, and then eventually go for like tukang urut somewhere else and that sort of things, right? And it's like these sort of decisions sometimes is very personal, very emotional. It's difficult to quantify how you eventually derive that treatment-seeking behavior. But again, coming back to AI, and then they are analyzing how people make decisions like that, right? Okay, how do they analyze that when you look at certain doctors, you derive that trust? And then so, we all have heard of how data is being used and manipulated, right? Okay, and in fact, if you look at how people make decisions about how to see doctors, a lot of that can be analyzed and find out the treatment-seeking behavior.
I think before we go into the part that people can mistrust, we skip that part, because that's where the legal part must come in. I think with a good and evolving, progressive legal framework, at least trust is built on the right foundation. I would like to touch a little bit on this part about legal, especially in your example. How should the legal framework be designed so that online consultation, smart healthcare can further grow without restriction?
I think it's only one word: accountability. Okay. Right? Because at the end of the day, whatever you're doing, any intervention, either it's consultation, making a decisions on the treatment or test or whatever it is, everything in healthcare carries some degree of risk. Right. Okay. So whatever adversity that you incurred as following that, you need to know that someone can be accountable. And so whatever jurisdiction, whatever legal framework, it has to be evolve around that word of accountability. So if you're in an online virtual world that the doctor that you went for actually eventually will be disappeared and nothing accountable. Let's say if I worry about a lump in my hand and then I took a picture, AI or whatever comes out with a diagnosis that this is a mole and it turned out to be a cancer. So someone somewhere needs to be accountable because that decision was made on my behalf on the trust that I made to visit this virtual doctor. And I think any legal framework, any jurisdictions, any organization or governing body has to work around that word accountability.
I definitely agree with that. Just to add on to that, that accountability and the legal framework must look at both sides.
Mm-hmm.
It must protect the doctor and also protect the patient. You know, so on the patient side, they must understand that it does not replace a live consultation.
Mm.
You know, sometimes it doesn't even replace a live treatment. Say, for example, surgery. Surgery, you definitely have to be live. You can't have an online consultation surgery. You know.
Robot does the,
Yes, robot does that
robot
these
does the
days.
surgery.
Yeah, all right. But then you still need to come to the hospital.
Well, you
Right.
can actually have a patient in Malaysia and then all line up and then the doctor is in US and operate on you.
Right.
What if one day we can order a metal box that I just sleep there and I get operated remotely? Online
Well,
smart healthcare.
that was already a technology has been around for 10 years. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Scary,
but still you're talking about that's remote consultation, but it's still by a live person. So that the legality has to look at both aspects to protect the doctor and protect the patient.
I think
that's very
the
important.
protection is important because ultimately why the trust is because I trust my life on the medical system, the people involved, and my well-being, right?
I think
Yes.
the other part is the surveillance of it, especially the data privacy. Who owns the data? Is it the doctor? Is it the healthcare center? Or is it the patient? Ultimately, I think the patient should have the access to the data and should have the say to what the doctors or the medical center would do to their data, because it can be used for many other things, you know, with your healthcare data and all that.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, amalgamating both the discussions is about this whole idea of data protecting both parties, and I think that's truly important. Is that at the end, if one organization is trustworthy, and then let's say, for example, we have an associations of cancer care for certain organization and built up that reputations and constantly use the data to audit themselves so that they have robust data to show their performance, and then also assurance that there's accountability of anything, and then also basically makes everything as transparent as possible. I think in the future, I will feel comfortable to go to something that has that accountability across all borders, because I know that accountability and trust is there, and also that data is constantly being used for good purpose, and also the doctors themselves are protected because you know, at the end of the day, everything is recorded. So it's matter of not just the patients are protected, doctors are protected too.
So it's also making sure that there are certain level of transparency and also openness, right, to the whole process and the
Yeah,
technology.
for example, the consent for, let's say, an operation. If the data already show that the certain operation had X percentage of complication, and then the data is being used for audit purposes, and highlight that, and when the patients go for that and have wrong expectation, but that is protecting the doctor because it's all transparent, saying that X operation has 20% complication rate, but the patients actually after consultation decide to do that, and then it's protecting both parties, which is what is the real doctor, the real life doctor is happening now, because you go to a reputable hospital and you go to a reputable doctor, and you know that whatever happens next, both the doctors and the patients are protected because it's all documented and it's all accountable.
So I think coming from this point, we are saying at least the framework should extend what is already existing, which is working, so that even the online, the use of technology, and even the inclusion of AI will not change the nature of how things have been protecting both the doctors or the healthcare operator and also the patients. I think that's fair and very important. I want to just come to this question because we are nearing the end. we all know this year is the COVID year. It impacted a lot of things. Will actually COVID-19 and the whole thing moving online speed up the acceptance, the progress, and development of online doctors or online smart healthcare?
Yeah, well, there's this joke going around. Who's the best change maker that speed up the whole digitalization? A, CEO, B, CTO, C, COVID-19. And guess what? The answer is COVID-19 because it has drive digitalization across board in all industry. And from our observation, we can see that COVID-19 has also drive a lot of changes when it comes to digital health adoption from the patient perspective. Online consultation, I think, is increasing high up in a lot of platforms. And also we see a lot of medical centers as well starting to adopt telemedicine software and whatnot. So I think it is a good thing. After COVID-19, will it come back to the same old norm where people still want to go traditional way? I think maybe we will go 5 steps forward and maybe 3 steps backward a bit, but we will still be 1-2 steps ahead from the last time where we were. Yep.
What do you think?
Yes, definitely COVID-19 has made an impact. As I was mentioning, we are looking at smart healthcare. But definitely it has been accelerated because we had to start thinking of solutions during the MCO. So we can't wait like we are at smart healthcare. No, we had to do something during the MCO, and so it really sped things up, not only in terms of healthcare, but in terms the whole way we run healthcare and the business itself, the hospital itself. We had to rethink, and we had to come up with new ideas and innovations of how to handle this. So yes, COVID-19 is a blessing in disguise, and it's really made us think in many ways.
Enforce the change management.
Yeah. Yes, that's right.
Without much
I'll tell you 2 things that COVID-19 taught me. Number 1, it's Zoom. Number 2 is Grab. Right? Okay. Before that, who cares about online? You want to talk to me, you talk to me like that, right? Okay. And then number 2 is that Grab food. You never thought about it, right? Obviously, everything is at the convenience of that. It also incorporated into my practice, because when the patients outside who cannot come to see me, even within different states from Pahang, and then when they say Zoom, I say, oh, why not? Let's talk to each other on Zoom. I have to accept that, right? Because they can't physically come and see me. I have the duty to make sure that they are looked after. When things don't work out well, I say, Doc, I need the medication. I said, don't worry, the Grab will deliver it to you. So, in a way, I changed the practice for myself that, I suddenly have to accept and embrace a lot of apps that I didn't even understand before. Suddenly I realized that there's a different world that I quite enjoy. And on the other hand, that world has to be incorporated into my practice as well. And so even for dinosaur like me, I still find that it was a bit of a barrier, but it was not as painful as I thought.
I think one part we can be grateful is, luckily there are some technology that we can quickly use. I don't even use the word adapt. It's ready, it's not perfect, but then allow us to continue operating in every single industry. Imagine without all this technology, we still have to dial the phone that you have to dial 20 times.
You remember?
Yeah, I am that old. No, but the whole thing is now, what impression does it leave? I still like the term new norm because it helps us to prepare ahead, that we just have to remain progressive, right? Competitive may not be the right word, but we must move on. And I think that's the part. Online doctor, I just kind of conclude a little bit. What we've discussed is still a very positive future where technology should be embraced, that we can now serve more people, also help them, especially during times of crisis like now that people who needs consultation, Zoom, Grab will actually do the job. And more importantly, that prepares ahead of giving us a taste of how that future can be like. And of course, we will not get it perfect the first time, but I think we are getting better every round, and that gives us lots of hope. Yeah, I think that is the mini conclusion I have, and I think it's about time. Do we ask I think there will be questions from audience. Maybe we can open up the floor. Yeah, so first question is from Ka Sang, saying that what is in place with online doctors to ensure privacy, and even things like medical records, so that the all this information of patients is protected. Maybe Dr. Rainey, let's start first. IT.
I think at the moment we already have the PDPA in place. That itself is also covering the data protection side of things, just to answer this question. Yeah.
Yep.
Just to add, being on the practicing side, that is one of our big questions. can you protect our patients' data? So of course, being on the IT side, they always assure us that they have all these firewalls and encryption and all that. And actually, if you look at it, most of the breach of data at the moment is by internal people. People who are actually having access to the data, or is by people who actually design the system but are working from the outside. So to me, what I've seen is the protection of data has been good, and the breach is always something that went wrong, not with the system, but with other things.
Are you suggesting that no matter how well we plan, there's always a way if you want to?
Yes.
There's a will, there's a way. Is
Yes,
it?
so you have to
Well,
have that.
I'm glad you said that. It's because I think to answer that question, Kaseng's answer should be, in order to protect that, right, okay, then we need to see the enforcement. So what sort of punitive punishment does people have? I mean, we've all heard of data that, 20,000, 30,000 of consumers' data is just lost, right? And then it's all in the open, credit card and that sort of thing. What repercussion did it have? Did anyone get punished? Did anyone go to court? Did anyone get fined? We don't get to hear about that. When people are truly punished for that, then you will build triple firewall to make sure you don't get punished. So I think it's easy for you to say, or it's easy for anyone to say that, it's always penetrable. But if it's penetrable, then it's not safe. Then if it's not safe, then you need to do your utmost for someone like Kaseng to know that whatever happened, if somebody cannot protect my data, you will be accountable for that. And then I think the authority and government really need to come out with really severe punishment. Like, for example, this happened to British Airways, information get leaked, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of punishment, and then, pounds of punishment. But in Malaysia, I think we need to see enforcement of that.
To come to this point, I just want to add a little bit. It's slightly more complex than that. Partly, you look at the case of Sing Health 2 years ago, I think, or last year. It's not just as simple as people can break in and steal the data. When it comes to privacy, the challenge is you are a walking target. People know where the money is, and the worst thing that makes this worry real is because you really don't know who. Those people don't show face at all. I think, but to put things together while the worries are there, I think there's always best effort, right? How many alarms that you set up before someone manage to get in, and I think that is within the legal framework, the IT system, plus good practices. I like the part where you say hospital must make sure the mechanisms does give a certain, level of security. Yeah, I think that's the best effort what everyone can put together.
At the moment, it's still very much depending on the provider themselves to make the effort to protect the patient's data. I think moving forward, perhaps the regulation can also keep up to that, where it requires certain standards of protection, maybe the bank standard of security system protection for healthcare data.
Yep. So let's move to the second question from Nuru. She asks, offline doctors offer human touch. I don't think online doctors can give the similar comfort or the experience.
Well, I agree with that, Nuru. I just kind of look at myself answering that question. One day, if I have the diagnosis of cancer, do I prefer to be told by an online virtual doctor that I'm sorry, your test result came up to be cancer? So under that circumstance, I feel like there is nothing, no matter how good the AI, the virtual reality is, it's going to replace someone sitting in front of me telling me that bad news. So on that basis, I don't wish this on anyone, but I think that human touch is just something that will make doctors never obsolete. However, it is something that doctors need to enhance on their quality, because this is the quality we have because we're human.
Yes.
Just to add on that, I would want my doctors and the future doctors who come to be a hybrid, actually, offline and online. So we can use the tools, the online tools, which will make us better doctors, but we still need that offline touch where we get personalized human touch. So I would say a hybrid doctor would be the best.
I have a colleague at some university that we work on remote touch. It's called haptics. So that when you put on the glove, someone is squeezing your arm and say, it's okay, I'm taking care of you. that may solve the problem of no rule. That could be the future too, right? So third question, Andy asks, coming back to as a working adult in the current era where we are very busy or held down with work, how do we go about getting medical consultation? So what would be the best solution? I think that's related to, will online actually solve a busy life, a city life kind of a situation?
Yeah, I think definitely online solutions will bring convenience to the patients. I think a lot of times it's not just the doctors is there, but whether or not we are accessible to that, whether or not our own time or even the places that we are allow us to do so. So definitely I would say online consultation is a way to go. But then again, if you are unwell, and maybe it's time for you to stop being busy as well, and take time to visit the doctor for a consultation,
point.
right?
Yeah. I mean, to say that when you're too busy to go to the doctors, then the doctors come to you, right? Effectively, this is the case. At the end, I'm going to highlight something about men's health, right? Okay. The disparity between men's and women's life expectancy is phenomenal. It's at least 5 years. Men die younger. And one of the key reasons is that men always delay their treatment, their consultation. And when you ask men why do they, been peeing blood for, 3 months, and then they decide only to come and see doctors 6 months later, and then they always say it's work. Right, okay. So it's not just work, it's embarrassment, it's difficult, it's barriers, it's fear, it's a lot of things. So the online technically can solve a lot of those fear, those barriers that to go and see doctors. So I agree, for certain group of people, convenience is important, but when things started become consolidated, I believe it can save life.
Just to add that, then I'll pass the time. What if the consultation in those cases are online, but still do not lose the human touch as you are talking to a real person, but there's a certain level of anonymity that I feel comfortable sharing without me revealing who I am? Would that help the situation?
Well, in a way that happens to mental health patients. Someone's suicidal, right? And then go online or go to telephone line for befrienders, and then just talking to somebody, and then it's anonymity. But yet you get that comfort, and it saves lives. So what difference is that online, offline? It's a healthcare provision for somebody who is desperate need, and then whose life is at the blink of losing the life.
With a new business model, we must talk after this. Dr. Rene, what do you think about this question?
I'll go back to that term that I use of hybrid doctors. Online consultation definitely has a place, but to me it's either step 1 or step 1 and 2. Where step 3 and step 4, sometimes you will still have to go to see the doctor. So step 1 is important when it's online, because sometimes all the patient wants is just to allay their fears, I have this lump, is it cancer or not? Cancer or not? So is the fear, is being busy at work? All they need is just an opinion, what should I do, So to me it's still a step 1, and we can give that opinion, but eventually if we say you need to go to step 2, you still have to go to step 2, no matter how busy you are.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's optimizing the system, that
Yes.
you can use maybe technology to solve the first line, the level 1 issues, or when it escalates to more serious cases, that's where the offline doctor will come in, because that's where you get the appropriate treatment. I think that's really good. Let's move to the next question. Song asks, has either Dr. Rene or Dr. George used an online platform to see patient? We just said about Zoom. Yeah.
Well, I use Zoom. I use WhatsApp as a online kind of like a virtual.
So I think the question is about, do you find it effective doing it online compared to the offline experience? I think that would be, yeah.
Obviously, to discuss the issues, I mean, these patients couldn't come to see me. And then I felt comfortable talking to them. And then these are patients I know from scratch, from a while ago. So it's a matter of their notes in front of me. I talk to them, and then so I feel comfortable with that. But for a new patient I've not met before, and also in a medium that I don't feel comfortable, I think I will have some resistance. For example, if let's say there is a apps that actually will do the same thing as whatever that it's promised, then I find that I will find it difficult. But I can see, like we talk about the whole COVID situation, I see insurance company has now got, I know you can't go to see doctors, but you don't want to name insurance for the purpose of their advertising, but if you go down billboard, they say that we will have online doctors readily talking to you, and these are qualified doctors. So in a way, many people are already using the medium.
It's a paradigm shift. Now we may still find it, but people are accepting it. But if this goes on for another year due to the whole situation, maybe it becomes the new norm again.
I'd also like to add that during the COVID-19, the Ministry of Health came up with guidelines of online consultation. So one of the things they did put there is present patients that we have treated, so that we know their history, we know their background. So that was the guidelines during the COVID. So patients that we have not seen are still encouraged to come in. And so if you ask whether it has been effective, for me personally, yes. As I mentioned just now, I'm still getting consultations online, but it's mainly from friends and relatives who I have seen, who I know, and I can advise them appropriately. And sometimes my advice is go to the nearest hospital.
So it's still a kind of human touch and trust, maybe. Good. I'll move to the next question from Ravin asking, maybe it's more like doctors, do they treat patients or illnesses? And would it be better online or offline? I think we did discuss a bit more just now. But this is a nice question about offline. Does it mean rural area will also benefit from better healthcare? What do you think about this?
I think definitely it will help, because I think there are some applications where in other countries in India where they have these rural doctors, and then they can use their facilities in the community area, and then they can refer to a specialist doctor in the city centers, because not every rural area will have the specialist doctor when it comes to the secondary and tertiary care. So definitely I think the whole online healthcare paradigm shift will definitely help the rural areas. But then again, another consideration is the infrastructure. So perhaps not every B40s who lives at the rural area would have an access to a smartphone, or even if they have a smartphone, they might not have the internet line. So perhaps the way to resolve this is to help set up an infrastructure for every community in order to access a better healthcare.
I'll highlight an award-winning project about rural healthcare. Basically, in Sarawak and Sabah, there are many patients who eat the rempah, and then suddenly they develop oral cancer. So in order to find out whether they get oral cancer or not, used to get oral surgeons to go to different parts. But now, with their smartphone, they take the pictures, and the pictures recognized, and then only the ones who have suspected oral cancer actually get shifted to the bigger towns so that they can see. So this is a really award-winning projects that actually transform the oral cancer treatment. So I think in a way, simple things like that, it's just a handphone taking the pictures, already can recognize, and then that eliminate the doctors traveling to different part of the rural part. And I also like Ravin's question about saying online doctors treating patients or illness, right? What we were talking about earlier on was treating the illness, the pathology, but actually treating the patients as a whole, it needs a human, right?
Yes, I would agree with that. The principles that are held by true dedicated doctors, like Dr. George and myself, never treat the symptom, always treat the patient. Never treat the illness, always treat the patient. So our focus is always the patient as a whole. And that's, I think, that's the way we look at it.
That's a good point, right?
That's the well-being. It's not just about getting rid of the illness. It's how is this person, right, recovering.
Treating the person in totality.
In totality, yeah. So it's a journey that you accompany. All right, let's go to the next question where I can't see the name. But let me read the question first. Can an online doctor, right, who sees the patient remotely achieve a definitive diagnosis without getting the patient to come to the hospital? Yeah. So what do you think?
I think doing tests like blood tests and all those things, there's always remote services where people can come to your doorsteps to do all those things. But perhaps, as what Dr. Rainey has mentioned also, there are different steps. So let's say if you need to go to the further steps where you need a CT scan and MRI, definitely you would need to come to a hospital. So I would say definitely online doctor wouldn't replace the whole patient and doctor relationship, but it will definitely facilitate the whole healthcare services moving forward. Yep.
I think it has to do with how accessible are certain equipment or technology to the so-called remote patient, right?
But these days, many patients turn up to clinics with the blood test already. Yeah, and then so if the test is an issue, sometimes the tests are already there, and then so that bypass a lot of things. And then so that is kind of interesting finding. So how will this whole landscape of tests and intervention later on in 10 years from today, it's actually will be interesting to observe.
Yeah, I think we have covered many interesting topics, and I would like to thank the panelists. I just have a shameless plug that 10 years ago I was working on telemedicine. I said that earlier, that we actually said, can we monitor the stuff? Because what you said, patients coming with the information is exactly what we tried 10 years ago in the research project, where we have technology to monitor. And today, many people do have Fitbit, different technologies they wear, and they collect data as they go. I think Apple Watch is doing that. So it is possible that you can get this information when they come to the doctors, no matter online or offline. And I truly believe in this vision that the first level, we could optimize without removing any of the impact on the patients. And that makes the whole healthcare smarter. And I think that's where the technology does not replace. I think that's still important thing that we all agree, but it will really enhance and complement the service. But more importantly, I think every one of us as human, we would love to still maintain the human touch. That I think, especially healthcare, is really about two-person coming, solving life's problem. Removing human from the equation is something we probably can't imagine today. 50 years down the road, we wouldn't know, but we hope that human touch is still important in the whole holistic, right? You mentioned that on so-called the road of healthcare or even recovery. Yeah, with that, I'd like to thank the panelists for your sharing. Insightful. Yeah, makes me feel a bit more like a doctor now. But it's very exciting to see how technology, together with the whole development, is giving us more hope than feeling maybe worried about the future. And I think that's the direction we want to move forward. So again, thank you, all three of you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank
I
you
would
for
also like
tuning
to
in.
say thank you to Star Media for inviting us, and thank you to the panel here. And I think earlier they did talk about the strawberry generation. I think here we agree that we are somewhere in between strawberry and durian.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we hope you have enjoyed the panel discussion as much as we did just now. Thank you very much for your questions as well. So, online doctors or offline doctors, we leave it to you, but we'll see how. Anyway, thank you once again to Dr. Lau, Dr. Rainey, Dr. George and Sin Yun for such a great and insightful discussion. It is most definitely a great honor to have all of you here today. So, ladies and gentlemen, that marks Star Media Group's Work Has South Live Virtual Forum a wrap. Thank you very much for your participation in these 2 days. We would also like to thank our gold partner, doctoroncall.com.my, our strategic partner, Malaysian Mental Health Association, our supporter, Perkeso, and all of this will not be a reality without our e-learning partner, e-learning minds, and also webinar partner, Cisco Webex. Before you continue with the rest of today, please help us in completing a short survey of this session. As you exit this webinar, there will be an auto pop-up of the questionnaire. Your feedback means a lot to us as we continue in providing great experience for you at our upcoming events. Once again, my name is Jun and I'm signing out. Thank you, and we look forward to host you again in the next Star Media Group event. Stay safe and stay innovative. Bye.